Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and I have decided to vlog daily since the start of this awful Russian invasion. And my today's vlog is going to be a little bit longer, so get some coffee and let's talk about victory, the way Russians see it, the way they celebrate Victory Day, and that Ukraine is finally celebrating the Day of Europe on the 9th of May. I want to congratulate all of you who celebrate this day. I'm really happy that Ursula von der Leyen came to Kyiv. This is symbolic. And I want to remind those who doubt that Ukraine is not new to Europe. We are just returning back home. We were occupied by Soviet Union, hidden behind Iron Curtain, but we have always shared your values for freedom, for respect, for diversity, and now we are fighting for them together with you. We are grateful for that support, but we are not alien to the European Union. We are coming back home from a very bad trouble, and this bad trouble is Ruskin Mir. And an important part of Ruskin Mir Doctrine is the celebration of the Victory Day. Actually, something very wrong happened to Russian society many years ago, when they have invented a concept that is rendered in Russian as POBEDOBESIE. I have to explain you this concept, but it will be difficult to translate it like close to this atmosphere that it can create in Russian language. That means obsession with victory, or craziness with victory, or mania with victory. And it demonstrates a totally distorted understanding of war, victory and peace by modern Russian population. It is a basic part of Ruskin Mir Doctrine. And when you look at the military parades in Moscow, that for a couple of years or decades, you will see this degradation of the very celebration and the very idea. And it became extremely toxic and now fuels the idea of Ukraine's destruction, of invasion to Ukraine, and so on and so forth. So let me explain you first what is that POBEDOBESIE and why it is so dangerous. Well, first of all, for decades, Russia was trying to steal this victory in the Second World War and to demonstrate it as the achievement of just Russian people, which is totally wrong, because we understand that the World War can be won only with the mutual effort of different countries. So second, they did not celebrate Victory Day for a long period in the USSR, from 1948 up to the 60s. Why? Because there were lots of people who were traumatized by war, lots of people who lost their limbs, lots of people who needed specific care from the state, but they did not receive it, so they did not want to provoke conflicts and to create the negative image of the Soviet Union, which once again shows how wrongly they understand war, peace, and victory. On every Victory Day, we think about millions of people who lost their lives, sacrifices, traumas that go from generation to generation after each war, and our only desire is to stop it forever. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe it is utopia, but we dream that no war come back to the planet ever. In Russia, it is just the country. When imagining their vision of the Second World War and future wars that they conduct, and will perhaps, because that's an inherent quality of Russian population and Russian dictators. So when they think about wars, they forget. They don't want to concentrate, they hide, they forbid talking about soldiers lost, about people who lost their health and their physical abilities. They don't focus on tragedies and scenes that wars bring into the world, but they focus on this glorious military fame of a poor Russian soldier, not giving a realistic image of an ordinary soldier. People who have to fight, they are strong, they are brave, but they cannot be happy. This is not their choice. And many people who are now soldiers in Ukraine, for example, just a war ago, they were teachers, IT specialists, chefs, and so on, and they love their life. They don't have this choice. And war is always a tragedy. And victory is a happy day, but a day that marks the end of a very dark and tragic period. And we have to talk about that. We have to think of that. We have to support all the people who were traumatized by war, but not in Russian society. In Russian society, they like to glorify weapons, to glorify tanks, to demonstrate their military okay, I don't know how to call it. You cannot anymore say capacities because they are losing this war, but they were threatening the world. Instead of saying never again, as we repeat in Europe, they like to say we can repeat it, we can do it again. And this definitely go against the logics of the victors and of the people who suffered the fears of the Second World War. And also together with that, they develop this cult of great patriotic war, which does not concentrate on the evils of Nazi regime, but more focuses on weak, rotting West, strengths of Russia, and makes this contrast between Western and Russian values more like vivid, with a huge dark gap. And war is seen as a solution to many of Russia's troubles. And I think this is what they do in Ukraine. They've got so many things to do inside Russia. Come on, think about it. The largest country in the world. Do they really need new territories? Then look at their Russian territories. They are all dirty, without normal roads, without water toilets and whatnot. Like, people do not move from abroad to Russia. Not many people dream to study in their universities, to receive medical health support in their hospitals, even to travel. Most people who travel to Russia travel as like to exotic country, as to North Korea right now. So they are not cool at all. They have so much work to do inside, but what do? They go outside to a country that lives better than they are, to destroy this country and to erase this contrast between gloomy Russian life and normal European, Ukrainian realities. And so they forget about sacrifice, about traumas of the war, and they glorify this brutality and violence that Russians are capable of, and somehow they think that this is their achievement, like to be the bully. We all know that the school bullies end up really bad in life, and that's what awaits modern Russian society. Also, this POBEDOBESIE, this vision of victory, is a part of Ruskin Mir Doctrine, which is a new philosophy very close to Nazi philosophy of one people, of that Russian values and Russian qualities are the best, that there are no peoples occupied by Soviet Union, but it must be recreated, and like all are Russians around Russia. And in this myth, Stalin is seen not as a totalitarian dictator and a person guilty in the deaths of millions, not only Ukrainians, but other people, but he is seen as a victor. He is seen as the greatest leader, and very often on Moscow military parades you can read Lenin, Stalin, Putin. They like this continuation. It does not terrify them, because in Ukraine or in countries like Lithuania, Estonia, if you equate someone to Stalin, it is very similar to equating to Hitler. People will get offended. People are afraid of any comparisons with Stalin, but in Russia it is taken as a compliment. And it all happened long before the full-scale war with Ukraine. But these symptoms, they were awful when I saw this small children, and I shared that on my community tab on YouTube, when I saw the small children, almost babies, wearing military uniform with tanks in their hats, with aggressive slogans written on their t-shirts. That is a tragedy. You know, in Ukraine, I know before this war, parents always hated buying guns, buying tanks, buying military uniform to kids who sometimes wanted it, because that is the dissemination of aggression, of a cult of military and war, something contrary to what we want. And Russia plays with that. It says that, okay, you are too tolerant, you are weak as the rest of the rotting West, and Russia is strong, even babies carry tanks. And that is actually, once again, sad, because what kind of future they offer. And here we come to another philosophical conclusion that actually inspires me to a series of videos. Let me know if you think it's a topic. Russia is totally past-oriented. Russia does not think about future. And any of their serious philosophical developments, ideologies, they are all based on past. They don't like thinking about future. They are afraid to think about future. They are not able to construct future. They like to leave their past. Why? Well, perhaps because they don't see any choice for normal future, any option for normal future. And they live in the past when their grandparents were heroes of the Second World War. But now, like, they are orcs of the totally wrong invasion of Ukraine, a country that actually fought together with them against Nazis. And this is, once again, a tragedy of Russian population that they don't think about. They are totally past-oriented. And we all know that the only way to live, the only way to evolve is actually to think about future, or at least to concentrate on your present. The good news is that a lot of military victory parades in Russia were cancelled, more than 21. And the thing is that like, Ukraine is strong, and we are able to defeat this second army in Ukraine, not in the world, as they claim to be. Lots of their tanks, lots of their soldiers, lots of their planes were burnt in Ukraine because they shouldn't have crossed the border. And they crossed all the borders, moral and territorial. And they must be punished for that. And I believe that once again, as in the Second World War, allies of good will win. And these are Ukraine, Europe, countries of North America, and many other friends all over the world in different continents. Because this war is very black and white. The division between good and bad is very visible. This parade in Moscow today looked pathetic. Only a few presidents of some Central Asian countries came, and perhaps they were obliged because of some economic dependencies on Russia. But you can see tired and pessimistic faces of the last dictators of Europe, Lukashenko and Putin, who look pathetic because of the way they spoil reality. They create these distorted images, and they have become victims of their own vision. They cancelled an air parade because it's an important part of Russian military doctrine, and they said because of weather conditions. And then Russians started asking, the weather seems normal, so what's the problem? And they explained that on other airfields all over Russia it's bad, and so on. But I think that Russian population slowly comes to realize that they are losing this war, that they are not strong, and that I am afraid they don't ask questions why. They still believe that it is the world fighting against them, but not they are fighting against the world. But we all know who is responsible for that. And these are many people. That's the problem. It is not just Putin and not just Stalin. These are generations of people who make wrong choices and who disrespect freedom. And I don't know why. I don't have an answer to that, but maybe together we can find and talk more about that. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for buying coffees and becoming my patrons. This is important. Thank you for sharing your stories and sending photos with t-shirts and mugs and so on. This means a lot, but most importantly, I'm grateful that you share information about Ukraine. I will add once again a link to the video that speaks about Soviet myth of the Second World War. Please share this video to remind people that Russia is wrong, Russia is very wrong, and Russia must be stopped. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and thank you so much for being with me. Slava Ukraini!